This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, the very best podcast for regular comic book fans. I'm your host, Mike Rapin, and joining me this week, a pair of TikTok live streamers bullying me into using DraftKings during the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. This week, I'm joined by Danny from the Next Issue podcast. And Kate Lamphere.
I don't even know what DraftKings is.
Oh, okay. Well, then why are you bullying me right now? Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you both about comic books. If you missed it, we're recording this episode live on Twitch. You should be here, twitch.tv/IRCB podcast. We're hanging out live on video together, talking about Mashley, Dan to Dan, Mashal, I guess, and as well as a bunch of other manga and anime because we're a bunch of nerds. You should know that. You're listening to this podcast. But we're here to talk about comic books, and so I'm very excited to ask the two legally mandated questions that I have for this show, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Danny.
Mike, I've been doing really well. It's been a pretty busy weekend. There's been a lot of trading card related activities, and it happens when you're playing two different games that both release a lot of stuff around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still searching for the One Piece myself, that won the pack with all the manga rares, the God pack as they call it on the internet.
Yeah, man.
It's tough. It's tough out here, but I do love opening packs. And yesterday, my local shop had Sanctuary Books and Games. Shout out. They had their customer appreciation night, which involves a big raffle of multiple things. So like you go there and you put your name in a little bucket, and the owner just started giving away a bunch of stuff. I didn't get anything too big, but the other thing is that when you leave, you can buy one thing from the shop, pretty much anything, with 30% discount.
Ooh.
And let me tell you, I took advantage.
Please tell me you did not buy like a booster box, like a full box of One Piece cards or something, Danny. Please, please, please.
I did not with the discount. I did buy a box, but not with the discount.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I bought. I wish I had. Do I have? I do have it. And we're on Twitter.
Get it.
It's right here. It is.
Oh.
It is a print, like a limited series print, New York exclusive by Adam Hughes, and it's signed by Adam Hughes. It's Satana for the audio listeners.
Wow.
I'll drop a picture on the Discord so you guys can see it later if you missed it on the Twitch. But man, I stare at this thing every time I go into the shop because it's like up on the wall and it's got that big old price tag. But yeah, 40% off. You know what? Let's do it. And plus, the shop is great. I love my shop.
Yeah, dude.
So it's been a good time for all that. As far as other comic books, and I know what you're saying, Daniel. Are you going to talk about the Absolute Batman #2?
I mean,
I am not, only because it doesn't go with the theme. Although the theme is comics that kind of make you feel good, and any comic really makes me feel good. So,
but for the record, I guess I should say for folks listening at home, today we are trying to talk about comic books that match our Goodreads theme of the month or in our Goodreads group, which are feel-good comics for when the seasons are making you feel down. And honestly, Danny, if the Absolute Batman book makes you feel good, you can talk about it by all means. But I know you had another book in the notes, so maybe we can talk a little bit about both. We're live here on Twitch.
No,
anything can happen.
It's fine. I think the only thing I'll say about Absolute Batman 2 is that it's still a banger. Like it's amazing. Nick Dragotta can do no wrong. Also, if you can pick up that black and white edition of the first one, it just looks so cool because Nick Dragotta's art just worked. Oh my god, Mike has it, and I'm gonna freak out.
Mike's got it. Mike ended up at Forbidden Planet and picked it up. I could not resist, man. It was the last copy that they had. I had to grab it. It's gorgeous.
Nick Dragotta's art looks so good in black and white. And the store owner was telling me, like, yeah, this one sometimes doesn't sell. I never know when to order these noir editions because people don't like black and white comics. And I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Sure, fine, whatever. It's not like Ghost Cage wasn't one of my favorite books that I read in the last couple of years. Fine, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. More for me. That way I'll make sure that I can go get it.
Yeah.
All right. But The book I did read, it's a book that's actually coming out as of the release of this episode live on our feed. It is Jill and the Killers. This is from Oni Press. This is a collection. It collects the first 4 issues. It is written by Olivia Cortero Briggs, with art by Roberta Ingranata, colors by Warnia Shahadiwa, with Rebecca Nalty on issue number 1, and letters by Haley Rose Leon, with a cover by Marguerite Savage. And they're giving us a new kind of game where even murder is much more than it seems. The premise of this book, we meet Jill. She's a high school age, I guess, student that she's gone through a lot of stuff. Like her mom's missing, she was in an accident, and she's kind of trying to get back into her life. When she goes back to school, and this is the part that I found really funny and interesting, all her friends, there's a new girl, and all her friends are now kind of like into this, what's it called? True crime, into the true crime
Okay.
scene, right? So they ordered this like puzzle box where this company will send you a box and then you can solve a true crime with your group of friends or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But as it turns out, the mystery that they find, it's a little bit closer to home than they think. So it's really fun because it has a lot to do with her mom being missing and people around the town. But I think at the heart of this, what I really liked and what I really felt tied it into the theme um, of this episode was that all these individuals, like when you're a teenager, problems seem very big, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously some problems are pretty big, and they're trying to kind of work through it. Like her mom's disappearance is something that she's trying to get back to normal. But I mean, at this stage, like, what is normal, right? Like, who knows what that looks like for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
um, and everybody else has their own thing going on, but they're all kind of drawn into this same kind of mission, and it feels like something that sometimes you do something to get your mind off of everything else, and especially
Sure.
since you're hanging out with your friends and stuff like that. But then when they discover that the box that they're looking into is not the box that they order from the game, like it's a real crime. Oh my god,
Cool.
it's so cool. So yeah, there's a lot of mystery, a lot of intrigue. The book is pretty fast paced. The first issue is like it's oversized, so you're really
Mm-hmm.
getting like 5 issues in the collection. I think something that I really enjoyed, even though I'm not familiar with Ingrata's artwork, was the way it's stylized to where these characters kind of do look like teenagers, right? Like they feel and they dress and maybe even talk like teenagers. I don't know what that sounds like, but to me, that's what to me, it sounded
Right.
um, it sounded correct. It sounded right. Uh, there's also some really really fun choices. Like there's a panel where a character just fell off a roof and he's upside down. So like his word bubble is upside down. So like
Mm-hmm.
just
Classic.
it feels like this book just made all those little details, making all those right little choices to like put the book up to the next level. So if you're looking for a book that kind of feels like Stand By Me or even Harriet the Spy for the millennial crowd out there,
Mm-hmm.
or Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like all those little where it's like it's serious, but it's also like kind of has a fun tone. So it's like not super serious all the time. Like I think this is a really fun book for that, and it leaves off in a way where you get a complete story, but also like, hey, the door's open, right? In case we want to go back and have to maybe solve another case or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, really enjoy that. That was really fun, and I'm glad, and I appreciate Oni Press for sending it over for me to check out. So, if you're going to shop and you're listening to this, maybe see if they have it. But yeah, but Kate, what about you? How have you been? How are comic books?
Good. I have been trying to catch up to the amount of reading that I want to do this year. Like I was like I read 300 books last year, so I'm going to read 300 books this year, right?
Wait, 300 comics or 300
Combination
prose books?
audiobooks, prose
Okay.
books, comics. It's mostly comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I log it all in Goodreads. So, and then I don't
Mm-hmm.
even read that many single issues anymore, but I feel like the years that I have hit 300, I was reading a couple of series and single issues.
Sure.
I may have set myself too high of a goal, but I have been.
We gotta bring you back to the single issue game.
Yeah.
You know, we get comps sometimes from different publishers. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from going to your shop and just picking up that absolute Batman #1 and #2 is all I'm saying, you know.
Right. And also the like digital manga subscription services are helping me do that too. But
that's true.
But also what
Yeah.
I have ended up doing is putting holds on way too many books at the library, and many of them are manga, and some of them I put on holds through Melcat, and so I'm getting like one little digest of manga from like Detroit 3 hours away, and I'm like, thanks for whoever transported this through the interlibrary loan system for me. So then I go in and I pick up my holds, and I end up picking up more than I intend to, and having way too many books to read. So hopefully I actually finish them all and hit my goal by 5 weeks, 6 weeks
Kate
away.
shows up to the library with a little red wagon. Make sure that you can carry all the books back home.
All I had with me the other day when I walked to the library was this cute little hiking backpack, and I left with like 4 thick hardcover books, like Under the Oak Tree of Volume 1 was one of them. And I was like, I managed to fit it all in this tiny little bag, but the librarian was like, do you need another bag?
They're like, we're glad that you're reading, but you're going to have a hard time getting all these books home.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder what they think of me. I'm like in my mid-30s and just checking out manga, and that's it.
They're probably just happy that people are visiting the library.
Honestly, yeah.
Exactly.
But one of the things that I intentionally put a hold on because I want to get through the series was Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou Volume 3 of the nice giant deluxe editions. This is by Hitoshi Ashinano, and then it's translated by Daniel Coleman. And thanks, Daniel, because these are great. And I don't know how to read Japanese, so... Volume 1 of this was Paloma's pick for the reading challenge for this year on Goodreads, and I absolutely loved it. It was cozy and delightful, and I think the description says something about like the world is winding down, and so you just follow this robot woman as she basically enjoys her life. And so it's sort of post-apocalyptic, but not in like a sad way. Like everybody's just there and living. So so this is about a robot woman who's kind of trying to run this coffee shop that was left to her by her owner who's been missing, and she's trying to ends up making friends with like the neighbors, the people who live close-ish to her, and somebody gives her a moped, and so she ends up exploring further away on her moped. She also ends up getting a camera from someone, and that aids her in like setting up shots and just sitting and enjoying something, the landscape or watching the birds or whatever. There's one airplane that she sees on occasion, and this isn't explained. And I do have to point out that she views pictures she takes on her camera by putting a cord into her mouth. Because she's a robot.
That's the future I want. I do not need to live in this meat flesh any longer. I wish to interface directly with my electronics.
Yes. So volume 3 is the one that I read, and she has some trouble with the cafe. Like a big storm comes through, and she has to like reassess what she wants to do with this business that is kind of just like people show up and she gives them coffee. I don't know if any money's exchanged in this economy.
Sure.
And she also the little troublemaker boy around town, he's starting to become a teenager and making some other friends, and so his character's changing, and then we also get the point of view from some of the other robots that she meets, like what their point of view is of her, which is actually interesting, I think, because it kind of adds to some of the backstory about like what happened, and like why she's like what a robot is doing out here in the country. And so in this volume she kind of goes further than she has before, exploring on her moped, and we see more of the countryside and how like the oceans have raised over some of the cities and towns that are around, and how things are like starting to decay. But most importantly, what I enjoyed was that she sees how like other people put together a life in this world, and like the communities that they build, and just like it's kind of depressing. Like, I know this is a feel good comic, but like you do see the world is like falling apart and returning to nature and stuff, but everyone is so
Right.
nice. Like, they're like, do you need a place to stay? Do you need something to eat? Like, do you need your moped
Well,
fixed?
you know, the apocalypse doesn't have to be a miserable, right? The end of times doesn't have to be this dire, awful thing. Maybe you can just make the best of. Maybe that's the message of the series. You make the best of the world that you have, right? And maybe that's something we can all take away from that.
Someone tell Robert Kirkman that, because I don't think he believes that.
Yeah, all these American authors, all they can see is the doom and gloom.
I did want to say, I wanted to talk a little bit about these deluxe editions, because this series must have been pretty popular historically, because according to Goodreads, it was originally 14 volumes and then it was re-released as combined 10 volumes. And now it's being re-released as a deluxe 5 volumes. So this is like the third release of this whole series. And when you're reading them, there's just occasionally a few pages of color, which seem kind of random, but I wonder if I like started to pay attention to like where the original volumes were split up at, if that's the first few pages of like original volume 8 or whatever, you know.
Yeah. That would be my guess. You say this is, you know, maybe was popular. I've definitely seen this on the shelves for a while, right? Like the color specifically of this series, like the rainbow gradient that they use is like one of the most eye-catching things in the world. So, I mean, this has been out for a minute, right? Like this series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've released Deluxe Edition 5, Deluxe Volume 5, which I think is going to be all of them by now.
Okay.
So I have no idea when that original like 14 volume volume 1 was released, you know.
1994 to 2006 this series originally ran. So,
and they were already doing cozy sci-fi. I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I imagine that this was probably not translated into English until much later, but like, yeah, it's been out for a minute.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to read the rest of the series. I might buy them. That's how much I like this. But like the deluxe editions are pretty pricey. But then if I break it down, considering like that it was originally 14 volumes, I'm actually getting a deal.
Yeah, Kate. Listen, do not be afraid of buying all of Girl from the Other Side, as well as all the deluxe editions, as well as the unnecessary extra stuff. Don't feel bad. I mean, sorry, Yokohama, Kaidashi, Kikou, different series, totally not anything I can relate to. Do not fear, Kate. It's all worth it in the end. It looks nice on your bookshelf, and you'll be happy to have owned it.
If you include like the cost per page and the craftsmanship and inflation,
and then you have to factor in a very unknowable, unfathomable thing, which is enjoyment factor, right? Like, did you enjoy it so much that you think it's worth overspending? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the dollar amount; it's about how much you actually enjoy it, right?
Right. What I'm running up against now is that the library has run out of the volumes. Like they don't have volume 4,
So now you have no choice but to buy the previous 3 as well as 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? Just buy 4 and 5?
The old Renee problem.
Yeah.
Called the old Renee problem.
Yeah, the old Renee.
Farid in the chat mentioned top 10 manga. So like, this was, and Farid reads a lot of manga for those not in the Discord. So it must be quite good.
Yeah, that is high praise coming from Farid. Well, okay, you've convinced me that maybe I should finally start this series. I'm woefully behind on the Goodreads reading challenge, and maybe I should start with volume 1 and just feel maybe read something that is slightly uplifting in these times that we live in today. But speaking of things that are not uplifting, I also read some comics. I did sit down, as I was saying. I think before we really started going, I read a bunch of stuff this week, like a full book, as well as like 2-3 graphic novels, some single issues. Finally got to sit down and read Absolute Wonder Woman, and then immediately followed it by Absolute Superman. And boy, oh boy, did you know that they're making some pretty good comics over at DC? Because I'm very excited. Those books are not perfect. They're not the end all be all, but they are stupendous. And I feel invigorated about characters that I usually don't care about very much. And that's exciting. Plus the creative teams are killer. And it seems like these first issues were absolute balls knocked out of the park because they are so much fun. Especially the Superman book, did not expect where the Superman book was going to go, and I am so pleased. So pleased. I had a lot of fun with it. But I also sat down, and one of the graphic novels I read is We Call Them Giants. This is by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans on writing and art, letters by Clayton Coles. This is a book that is maybe not the happiest feel-good book, but it made me feel a lot of feelings in a good way. It's good. I wrote in the notes, it's good in a way that feels good to feel things, okay? I didn't know what to expect going into this OGN because, one, I knew it was the Die team, and I was like, I don't care. I'll blindly buy this. It doesn't matter what this book is about. I want to see what they're going to do. But really, I had read almost nothing about it. I knew I'd seen the cover a million times, didn't want to be spoiled. I wanted to go into this fresh, and I'm really glad that I did, because any hint at what this story could have been would have probably spoiled it in some capacity and made it not as exciting. But I don't want to do that for anybody else. So I'm going to be very vague when I talk about this book. But I think I think this book stumbles a little bit when it starts, but the questions that you have right from the get-go of, wait, what is actually going on? And why do I feel like this book is going to hurt me, kept me going. I was very curious as to know, like, how is this story going to end in a way that feels satisfying and exciting? And I will say that it does. But the quick summary that I can give without spoiling it is Lori, our main character, wakes up to find everyone in the world has disappeared. And well, damn, I guess not everyone. When a streak of light in the sky piques her interest, she goes on a personal journey akin to one I think everyone will recognize in the end. And that's all I can say without really talking too much about it. I can say, though, that Hans's art is spectacular in this book. Purples and off-white color fused with like incredible splashes of gradients and red. Really, this book is gorgeous. Like, the pages, as I was turning through this graphic novel, are heavy with the amount of ink that are on this thing. Like, this thing is colored from corner to corner, and it looks gorgeous. There's a lot of like blending moodiness in like the specific colors she chooses for the monuments. There are these very important things with red and green and purple and off-white. Like, and the way that it's used, there is a questioning that I was in my head the entire time. Is this moody for the sake of being moody, or is this moody because it is trying to tell me something through the art rather than through the writing? Because I think the writing in this book, while is very great, is super clipped compared to Kieran Gillen's other works. I feel like in other stories, he would have spent a lot of time putting information on the page for us, to give us insight into the world and the characters and what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is thinking. But with such a very limited cast, and with our main character being this like very angry teenager who seems to only want to use specific, precise words for the things she's talking about, the book has to do a lot of the work, or the book is carried by the work of Stephanie Hans in her art. I feel like so much of this story is told just through her art. Gillen gives these little insights as to the characters' conversations and some of the dialogue inside of Laurie's head. But really, like, Hans is doing the heavy lifting in this book, which I find to be incredible because, one, Kieran Gillen is a very talented writer, but to really pour all of the energy, or pour, I guess, a lot of the storytelling into Hans's art is like a really interesting thing for him, because he's worked with talented writers in the past and still written, pages and pages and pages of dialogue. So yeah, I really like this book, but to say that I loved it is maybe would be a stretch too far. What I was desperately invested in, once I started to put together the picture of what Hans and Gillen were going for in this book, really got me, like, I don't know, I started to well up at the end because I was like, damn, this is such an interesting way to tell this particular story. And I feel like a big softie, but like the way they set up the clincher of this book, I simply just wanted to get up. It was like 2 a.m. and just go hug every living person that I knew in this world, because it's so very well done. I will recommend this to everyone. You should go read this. Get it from your library. Go buy it. It's worth it. The hardcover is nice. It's a very, like I said, the pages are weighted down with the amount of ink that they had to use, and it's good quality print. But either way, go read this book. It's fantastic. It's like 100 pages. I think everybody will really, really dig this. So go read We Called Them Giants. I can't say it enough.
Yeah, the biggest compliment I can give this book is that when I read it, I wasn't planning on reading the whole thing.
Sure.
But I couldn't stop. Like, once I started, I was like, I got to get through the end of this. I need to know what's going to happen. I need to know what is going on. And it just looked so beautiful at every page. And then you think you've seen the coolest image, and then you turn the page, and then there's like another image, and you're like, oh my goodness.
I know.
Where it just kind of crescendos into this. Yeah, I didn't realize until you were talking about it, Mike, how very little dialogue there is. And I know if you're a Kieran Gillen fan, you're expecting a lot of Britpop references. I will say, there's none in this book. Not that I
None
could
that I
find.
could tell. Yeah.
But yeah, it is
Yeah.
fantastic read. I read it. Image had sent us a copy, and then also but that was never gonna stop me from going to the shop and picking it up.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this needs to be in my collection, needs to be on my shelf, so I can recommend it to other people. So if you want to get a little taste, and this is in nowhere like close to what Die is, but if you want to see how they work together as creators, this is a great place to start. And then from there, because Die is a bigger endeavor, right? So
Yeah, it's 20 issues. Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, and I don't want to act like Kieran Gillen didn't write much in this book, right? It just feels like what he did write was much less than I've seen in other books. But there's still plenty of dialogue, plenty of writing and stuff like that. But yeah, it was very interesting as I was finishing the book to realize that so much was conveyed just through some of the art and some of the like faces that Stephanie Hans is just fantastic at. Like she's very great at depicting sad faces and happy faces. Like she just does emotions in such a way that are so bold that I always have a good time. Like Die was the exact same way. But yeah, geez, I could talk about this book for days. But instead, we need to move on. We need to talk about other things that are not me talking about my addiction to Pokemon the trading card game Pocket. And that is comics that are on the top of our pile, comics that are new or old or just something you're looking to get off your shelf. I want to shout out some of the folks that are hanging out with us live, specifically those on our Discord who gave us the books that they're reading next. Avocado Kenobi is going to be reading Turtles of Grayskull #2, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is the TMNT crossover with He-Man, right?
Correct.
I don't have enough time to unpack that. Paul G is going to be reading Haru Book 2 Summer. Ferd is going to be reading The Deep Dark by Molly Knox Ostertag. And CK is going to be reading John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, #5-9. Very happy to hear that DC Universe Infinite subscription is getting used by UCK. But let me kick things over to Kate. What is on the top of your pile this week?
So this is one of the things that I went to the library and grabbed that I didn't mean to grab. but it also fits in with our Goodreads theme, so it worked out.
Okay.
This is Cat Massage Therapy Volume 1. This is by Haru Hisakawa, and this is exactly what it sounds like. I read the first couple of pages, and so far a stressed out office worker has stumbled into a massage parlor staffed exclusively by cats. And the manager cat is like, just lay down and I'll give you a massage. And
wait, the cat talks?
Yep. And
Okay.
it's not in dialogue tags though. Like it just is like floating words. So I'm unclear if this is like out loud or like in his mind or I don't know. But
Like
anyway, so
nonverbal
the cat
cues.
Yeah, so the cat gets on his back and kneads with his little paws. If you've ever had a cat do that, it does feel very nice. I wouldn't call him at a massage, but that's fine. And then he just like lays down on this guy's back and purrs for a while. And this guy is like, "This feels so nice. I'm so relaxed. I'll be back." And like honestly, sign me up for this cat massage.
I love this.
And according to Goodreads, there are 3 volumes of this. So if you need another cozy read about cats, here's a short series for you. What I read for this week was Yokohama Kaidashi Kikou, which and this also Cat Massage Therapy are both published by Seven Seas. And a couple of years back, I remember saying on this show that I was reading a lot of Kaidansha and that I wanted some kind of subscription service from Kaidansha, that I probably used that more than I used like Viz or something. And then a few months later, Kaidansha released K-Manga. So here it is. I'm saying it right now. 7 Seas. I need a subscription service for digital comics.
Please.
And thank
you.
you.
We're begging you. We're begging you, 7 Seas. Please call me. I'll help you build it. Please, 7 Seas. Yeah, that's amazing. Of course, 7 Seas publishes this. This is amazing. It's very cute, and that is kind of what they do very well. I think they do some other stuff that is cute's not the word I would use for it, but you can buy a lot of digital comic books from them.
Yeah.
But they don't have a subscription service.
Right,
I see. They do.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
They
Kate.
work with libraries a lot, and I really appreciate that. But they could
Uh,
do both.
Kate, I'm sending a link to you in our group chat in on our other service, and then I'm gonna post this in our shared chat, and then I'm gonna just leave that there, and I'm gonna talk about what's on top of my pile. Does that sound
Oh
good?
no, what is this?
That's all. So
Okay.
top of my pile this week. um, I am gonna be reading Pet Peeves. This is by Nicole Go. She's a friend of the show. She's been on here before with our good pal Dave Baker. Danny and Kate, thank you. I grabbed this book, Pet Peeves, as part of another Avery Hill Publishing Kickstarter that I backed. And I saw that Nicole's name was on it, so I said, yeah, I gotta own this. It's a horror graphic novel about about a woman who has basically nothing going on with her life except for her dog. She works at a bar. She wants to play music, but she never has the time or energy. The only bright spot is her dog, always cheerful, always cuddly, and always there for her. Quite honestly, I'm scared at how much I can relate just to the summary of this book. So I'm very excited to read it, if only because I'm wondering where the horror comes in, but I'm sure it's going to get gruesome really fast. I really like Nicole's art in general. If you read the Forest Hills
Bootleg
Forest Hills
Society.
Bootleg Society, thank you, that she did with Dave Baker, fantastic little book. Absolutely love that as well, so I'm very excited to dig into this, just because I don't know, I like horror comics a lot. I don't get freaked out by them too much, and there is something about knowing that the story is stuck inside the book and is not very realistic, because it's drawn, that makes me feel good. So I'm going to be reading this next. I'm excited.
It interesting to see. I'm interested to see. I'm gonna probably check it out, Mike, as well, just because I want to see how Nicole's style fits into the horror genre. Because everything I
Mhm.
read, like everything is Tulip. Like it's
Oh yeah,
it's
everyone
got
is
some like
Tulip. Right.
thrilling stuff on it, but it's I wouldn't call it horror at all, right? And you know, like so all the books that I've read from Nicole, like they're not even horror close to horror. So her
Mhm.
art's very I don't want to say cutesy, but like that's the best word I can think of. So
Yeah.
I like to see how that applies. Or maybe there's just the juxtaposition of the art style and the things happening on the page that kind of mess with your
Yeah,
mind.
from what I've flipped through, I think it's a little bit more psychological horror than it is something like gore or, spooky demons and stuff. But I, again, not really sure. There's just a couple of pages of like some people looking kind of strangely at each other or at the reader. That's like, oh, is the horror actually horror, or is this just existence? That
You are
I'm
the
very curious
horror
to dig
all
into.
yeah.
But yeah, I think this is one of Nicole's earlier books. I need to double check on that. But yeah, it came out a little while ago. Oh, it says originally published in 2023, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, either way, I'm very excited to check this out. And hopefully we can have Nicole back, and maybe I can pick her brain about some of this stuff. But anyways, Danny, what about you? What is on the top of your pile?
Well, Mike, Kate talked about a manga and you talked about a comic book. What if I told
Mm-hmm.
you that you can combine them into one?
Okay, Danny, pitch me on this.
I'm picking up from IDW and Viz Media Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Naruto #1 because you don't say the X out loud. I think,
This is the
yeah,
Hunter x
yeah,
Hunter
or
thing all over
Spy X
again.
Spy
Damn
and
it.
all of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you had told me that somebody was gonna put a book together like this, I was like, did I wish for that? Did somebody get into my bucket of toys and mix them all together?
Yeah.
And I know you just mentioned TMNT and He-Man earlier. He-Man was a little it's a little before my time. Like by the time I got to He-Man, I was like, oh, it's like but this is peak me kind of growing up.
Yeah.
Like Turtles in the 90s and then Naruto in the aughts and even now I still watch and love Boruto's not as good, but somebody's got to watch it. But yeah, this is this is written by Caleb Golner and art by Henry Prasetya, colors by Raul Angelo, and letters by Ed Dukeshire. Of course, Naruto, created by Masashi Kishimoto. I don't know anything about anyone in the creative team other than Ed Dukeshire that letters everything at IDW pretty much. So the letters are going to look great. Uh, but let me pitch you here what's going on. This is the coolest ninja matchup you could ever dreamed of. The heroes in the half shelf meet the host of the Nine-Tailed Fox in the crossover everyone will be talking about when teenage reporter April O'Neil has a clandestine meeting with Tsunade, the Hokage of the Leaf Village, of course. Uh, it garners the attention of Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi. I can't wait for people on TikTok that only normally talk about comic books to like start saying those names out loud.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. Just reading the comments of like, that's not how you say Sasuke. But
Sasuke,
yeah,
right? Sasuke.
yeah. They so they're not the only ones that are interested in the meeting of these two women. The Foot Clan also has their own interest in this visit, uh, because mutation research is being done by Bastard Stock. Whatever that's Foot Clan nonsense. But I mean, come on, this is like you're grabbing some of the best ninja in media from all time and bringing them together. There is no way I'm not picking this up. This is going to be a
Yeah.
4-issue comic event, probably the most popular thing in the United States. Mix it in with one of the most popular things in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say outside of DC and Marvel, like if we had a big three in comics for indie stuff, the Turtles are there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then obviously Naruto, one of the big three in manga.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whatever these people want to call the new wave big three or what, that's not a thing. There's only three. There's only one big three. All right.
Yeah.
So you can leave us a comment on that. But the real question is, how many covers am I picking up for this?
Danny, I worry so much about your wallet for this one, more so than Absolute Batman #1.
Me too. We just had a G.I. Joe week. I didn't even talk about G.I.
I
Joe
know.
#1.
Listen, post show, you're gonna have to tell us about this G.I. Joe because you were hinting at it, and I didn't get the final result, so I'd love to hear more about it. But I will say, Caleb Gollner, writer on this book, actually longtime Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles writer, right? I think he's done stuff with like the Saturday Morning Adventures. I think he's done a bunch of the like little one-off series that the TMNT have had over the years.
Yeah.
He also did the TMNT. Or he did some Sonic stuff as well. But Caleb's been on the show before. He's written a bunch of indie comics. He's a friend of the show. Long time ago, we had him on the show for a brief instant. I think we talked to him at Emerald City Comic Con and stuff. Very nice guy. He also worked on Ghost Cage with Nick Dragotta. So the guy's been around for a while. Just to add a little bit of credit to this, I think this book is going to be a banger because not only is it a great crossover, but just because something's a crossover between two great titles doesn't guarantee that it's going to be any good. But I think Gollner definitely knows how to make this work, and I'm super excited to see what he does because he does big bombastic TMNT stuff really, really well. So I'm hyped to see how he does this because this will probably be super all ages friendly too. This isn't going to be some Lost Ronin bullshit. This is going to be very friendly, very excited. Because think about it, you've got like upbeat Turtles, upbeat Naruto. Like, just imagine the craziness he's going to get up to with these fun little turtles. So it's gonna be great.
Michelangelo and Naruto in the same room.
Oh, I know.
Discovering the exchanging their love of pizza and ramen with each other. Like this is.
I'm going to say it right now. If at the end of this series, they don't invent a pizza ramen or a ramen pizza, it will be a lost thing. It'll be lost on this series.
Yes.
Brian in the chat says nightmare blunt rotation.
Yes. This is, they're also IDW. They're like, we can make a lot of money of this. Jorge Jimenez did the main cover, and they're putting out a hardcover of the first issue with a spot gloss cover. I saw it on their website.
Danny, please, I beg you, please.
Listen, Mike, I will show it to you when I get it. Don't you worry about that. If that's what you're worried about. I put on the notes, like, if there's any other comic and manga y'all would like to see crossed over. Maybe we could talk about that later on in the post.
Yeah, that sounds like a good... Yeah, I got some thoughts.
So, but yeah, that's I mean, I don't know how we come back from this.
Dude, what a pick! Honestly, best way to end the show is right with that TMNT Naruto crossover #1. I will probably be reading this, if only because I can't fathom a world where I don't actually experience this myself, because it's such a crazy crossover. I know enough about Naruto to be dangerous, so I'm really excited to see how they put this together. But that is where I think we will wrap up the show here. I want to say thank you to Kait and Danny for being on today's episode. Thank you to Brian for proof listening and sass mastering over in the Twitch chat. I want to say thank you to everyone watching live. You are fantastic human beings. Thank you to all the folks over on Discord who sent out their top their pile posts. Next week's episode is a pre-recorded episode that was recorded a couple weeks back after Transformers Volume 1 came out. Maybe the most controversial episode of IRCB to date. It's Brian, Kara, and Nick. They're going to be talking about Transformers Volume 1 by Daniel Warren Johnson. And boy, oh boy, if I could show you guys the chat logs between me and Nick about that series, you'd lose your minds. But I'm not on the episode, so have fun with that one. That said, thank you to Zander for editing this episode. You're a saint. Until next time, comics are good, and so are you.